In Hanoi, capital of Vietnam, to speak with Madame Ninh. She is a former member of the National Assembly and a former vice chair of the National Assembly's Foreign Relations Committee. She decided not to run in the last election because she decided to dedicate herself to her university project in the province of Vung Tau, whom she represented when she was a member of the National Assembly. Madame Ninh, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Madame Ninh, Vietnam is definitely on the map right now after years of war and after years of the world not knowing Vietnam at all. But I believe it was one of your early job to try and introduce Vietnam to the world. Can you tell us about those early days?
Well, if I may, I'd like to bring some slight correction. During the war years, Vietnam was known.
Yes, that's true.
In fact, the name Vietnam, seems to invoke war, and it brings to me the phrase that our late Deputy Foreign Minister Lê Mai said to journalists, because he wanted to explain to them, don't think of Vietnam only in terms of the past and therefore of the war. He said, Vietnam is not just a war, the name of a war, it's also a country, a people. But of course, to try and sort of put Vietnam, the reunified and peaceful Vietnam on the regional and the world map takes time, because for many people, all they have in their minds are images of the past. But with all the developments since the past couple of decades and Vietnam's international integration, I think today we have a window of opportunity to really do that at last. I have been talking to various audiences, and what I am saying is now is the time for Vietnam to take its place under the sun.
But it's now back in the groove, as they say, and Vietnam is very active in international organizations, in international conferences of which you represent. What is the priority foreign policy of Vietnam today?
Well, of course, we passed that utmost hurdle of the WTO accession, but I think fortunately, people understand here, the policymakers as well as the businesses and even the broad public, that this is the end of one phase, is the beginning of another phase, which is just as difficult. That is to say, to live up to the commitments. You're trying to understand what WTO was all about, the challenges to get into it, now the challenges to be a viable and respected and effective member of WTO. And it means that it's a job that has to be done not only by the government, but by the business community in tandem, together. They have to pool their respective resources and strength. So far, it seems that the past few months things seem to move in the right direction, but before we can really decide whether Vietnam has really achieved positively the expectations of the post-WTO period, we will have to wait for a couple more years before it is clear. One of the challenges would be particularly in the area of intellectual property. Another will be in how we monitor our trade growth. As you know, the protectionist tendencies, surface immediately as soon as there's a surge, a sort of a spike, as they say, in trade. And so at the moment we are monitoring very carefully our exports to the US market in particular. because of that. So, just to ward off possibilities of further, anti-dumping measures or cases again.
It's a problem that is facing many ASEAN countries, actually.
Indeed, I mean Thailand, Indonesia. So it's like we are learning to live with trade frictions, because we have realized that getting into WTO doesn't mean that it's the end of trade disputes or trade frictions. It's just that those trade frictions and disputes will have a framework within which we will be in a less, detrimental position when we have to face such protectionist measures from major markets.
Now, 10 years ago, Vietnam joined ASEAN. What has it gained by becoming a member of this regional group?
I think that it seems to me that Vietnam's accession into ASEAN was really a turning point. The message was that Vietnam had realized that its integration to the outside world needed to be rooted in a regional framework. And I think that's true of all countries today. If you ask a country of Europe, they'll say their immediate near is the most important.
Well, at least the economic gap is slowly being narrowed. There's no question about that. The ideological gap, I wonder about that, because as you know, we have the charter coming up the end of this year. And in ASEAN, there are some members who disagree with it, Myanmar, Laos. Now, is Vietnam in agreement with all aspects of the charter?
I assume not, but my perception of it is that Vietnam is really will always go along with the overall trend. Consensus. I don't think Vietnam will ever want to be in a minority position. And remember one thing, Vietnam is used now to be in environments where there are different political systems. If there's nothing unexpected, and we are elected during the upcoming United Nations General Assembly, we will be a non-permanent member of the Security Council for 2 years, starting 1st of January 2008. And so we are bracing for that challenge, because for Vietnam it will be a first. And we need to think hard what kind of profile and contribution we want to make there. In the sense that we will be the only ASEAN member there. And so I suppose, I do hope that my colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will think of really, always touching home base with the other ASEAN countries, to make sure that when we speak there, of course we do not speak only for Vietnam's interests, but also to the extent we can for the interests of ASEAN.